Welcome to Made in the South. My name is Tina Honeycutt, and I'll be your host today. Thank you for joining me as I take you through a little bit of my past and share some of my stories of how I survived and thrived despite growing up in poverty and the foster care system in the 1980s and 90s in North Carolina, and how I became the woman I am today and how I was able to maintain that hope for a better day. Thank you for tuning in. Trigger warning. This podcast contains discussions of sensitive and potentially distressing topics, including but not limited to sexual assault, SA, neglect, strong language, loss of loved ones, suicide, and domestic abuse. Listener discretion is advised. If you're easily triggered or sensitive to these topics, please take care of yourself and consider whether listening to this content is appropriate for you at this time. If you or someone you know is in crisis or needs support, please reach out to the following hotlines. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline for the U.S. is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Their crisis text line for the U.S. is text hello to 741-741. Again, that's text hello to 741-741. The National Domestic Violence Hotline for the U.S. is 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. If you are outside the USA, please seek out your local resources and hotlines for support. Your mental health and safety are important, and help is available. You're not alone. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me again. This is Made in the South with Tina Honeycutt. Well, we left off on some weird spots yesterday, right? I will again just preface are trigger warnings in this. We will be discussing discussing moments of sexual abuse, physical abuse, as well as emotional and mental abuse. Unfortunately, my story is not a pretty one, at least not my past. I tend to not talk about what happened to me because I kind of feel like it was a different part of my life. I tend to not look backwards. Anyone that knows me knows I'm kind of eye on the prize, move forward. I can't spend my life looking back. So talking about these subjects is pretty hard for me, but I'm going to push through. Thank you, each and every one of you that reached out to me. Truly honored that so many people cared to reach out to me after hearing my story for the first time. And oh my God, thank you everyone that has watched and listened to me, whether it was just for the 3 minutes or it was for the whole duration of 30 minutes, because I know I can talk. After all, I'm Southern and I do get sidetracked. It does happen. But I want to say that I'm deeply honored. I'm just a person. I'm just someone's mom. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like I'm anyone special. I'm just a person that's trying to do my best every day. And that's all I can do, right? Be a good person, do good things, put out good vibes. But it took me a lot to get to where I am now. There's so much in my life that people tried to break and minimize and make me smaller. And I had to persevere and push through. Kind of left off of how I got into the foster care system yesterday, how I was adopted to the Honeycutts, my sister and I. Again, my brother did go off into the system and got adopted to another set of Honeycutts who lived 2 hours away from us. Well, life was as usual. My family was very religious. We went to church on Wednesdays and twice on Sundays. Our bedtime stories were about, Noah's Ark and Jacob and his coat of many colors. When I was a child, I used to love God so much. I love Jesus and that message he had, come unto me, you little children, you know what I mean? That kind of, that message. Jesus was so kind and sweet, and God was a little scary, you know what I mean? Like, he made it rain for 40 days and 40 nights, kind of wiped out a whole population. God, I was a little like, oh, you're kind of scary, but Jesus seems to be cool. He's got a cool message, you know what I mean? Like, love thy neighbor. Do unto others as you would do unto yourself. And I love that. I thought Jesus was cool. I liked his concept story. You know what I mean? He started Mary. She had no, you know what I mean? The Virgin Mary. She didn't know what the heck was going on. She was suddenly told that she was pregnant and her with the Son of God. He kind of grew up unorthodox, and maybe a little bit of me was like, well, maybe I'm a little bit like Jesus. Now, don't think that I got a God complex or anything, but it's not, because Jesus had an interesting story. It wasn't really easy for Jesus. And Jesus did, according to the Bible and the scripture, die. He sacrificed himself on the cross. Kind of bit filled in my life like I was sacrificing myself on the cross. So my parents, at the first, they weren't bad. Kermit, my father, my adopted father, he never really was around much for us kids. He was always busy working out in his shop. He used to have a shop. We had a shop on the property. He used to repair small engine motors, so like boats and lawnmowers and stuff like that. And anytime I could sneak out of the house after I got my chores done, because my mom was all about doing those chores, man. I had to make sure all the beds were fixed, all the dishes were washed, laundry, vacuuming, mopping, all that fun stuff. And I was always the one that did that because I was the helper, my mom's backbone. But anytime I could nick out in the summertime, I would sneak over to Dad's shop. I don't know, something about the smell of that oil and just being dirty and, no rules. And Kermit would just let us. That was kind of nice. And I remember he had a drink machine, a can machine. Remember, would stock it with A&W, root beer and Mountain Dew and a Pepsi. We weren't allowed to have pops and sweets very often. My adopted mom was a diabetic, so we didn't have sugar and sweets in the house. But every now and then, on one of those hot summer days, we'd roll over there and Kermit would let us have them. I could just remember, because it's so damn hot in the South, I'd take out the can from the machine. He would open it up and he'd hand us a can. And big fat drops, condensation just rolled down the can because it's so hot. I just remember that. It was the coldest, sweetest, amazingest thing ever. Simple little pleasures like that. There were some times in the summers that they were really good. We got our chores done. We would go outside and play all day, me, my brother, and my sister. Remember, you could not get me to wear a shirt or a pair of shoes. I used to fight my mom about going to school because I meant I had to wear shoes again. During the summer, there wasn't anybody to pick on me. They didn't care if I had the nice clothes or the fancy shoes or whatever. Other kids in foster care, they would come in and come out. They were just like me. They didn't have pride. They didn't pick on me. They didn't think that they were better than me. So in that sense, like I did meet a lot of people who were in kind of the same situation as I did. But I also met a lot of kids that were going through some stuff too. So many kids I met. And people be like, well, why can't I stay here too? You know what I mean? Like, you guys have it good. Well, yeah, sure, on the surface. My mom was very strict. My dad didn't do anything about raising us. He just left that to Pearl, and she did all that. And she was of the belief that spare the rod and spoil the child, man. And I was raised by a Southern mother. If she told you to go get a switch, you better bring the right kind of switch. There's so many of us, if we got in a fight or spat, instead of just finding the one and filtering through the bullshit and punishing that one, you know what she would do? Because she's like, oh, y'all gonna lie anyways. Why don't you all line up? And she'd make us bend over and pull our damn pants down in front of everybody else and spank us. I think the worst part of that was the anticipation of laying across her lap, waiting for that first smack, waiting your turn in line. Because she was like, you ain't gonna tell the truth, so I'm just gonna get all of you. Man, as a middle child, I got blamed for everything. I really did. It sucked. I was the one that took it all. The thing was, I wasn't even the one causing the havoc or chaos. I was the good kid. I wanted to please her. Because I thought, if I'm good, if I am loyal, if I clean their house, if I do everything she says, and she will let me and Sheila, my sister, stay, I'll get food. I'll have a roof over my head. I'll have clothes. I'll have a bed to sleep in. So I put up with it, you know what I mean? Like, when I get spanked, even though I wasn't even out there playing with the other youngins, you know what I mean? Like, I would deal with it. I mean, sure, I'm not going to say that I was the most innocent child. I was climbing trees and being crazy with my brother and climbing on top of the roof and jumping off and these things. I was using my imagination. We weren't sitting in front of the TV. If we did, we were watching Bonanza or Gunsmoke or something, whatever my parents were watching. We never got to choose, like, TV. Very rarely we ever got to watch Saturday morning cartoons. And my mom said, hey, if you're sitting in here, she was of the belief, idle hands is the devil's work. So if we were in the house, too long, guess what we're doing? We're going to clean out the cupboards, take all the dishes out and wash them, put them back. You know what I mean? I'm going to organize all the clothes in the closet. My mom loved to wash clothes and hang clothes out on the line, even though we had a perfectly working dryer. Trust me, I tried that, approach. I'm like, well, we have a dryer. Why not use the dryer? But my mom liked her sheets crisp. So here I am, my tiny little self. I'd have to go out there, hang clothes out on the line, use a stool, step on it, get down, step on it, get down. It would always take me so damn long. None of the other kids wanted to help with that, of course. Never. And people wonder why it takes me 5 to 7 business days to do laundry nowadays. You could not pay me to ever hang my clothes up. I will always use my dryer forever and ever. And don't ask me to iron something, because you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to get it damp and I'm going to throw it in the dryer. It's good enough. If you want creases, baby, go to the dry cleaner, because this girl ain't going to do it. Anyways, I digress. I guess I was just trying to kind of set up the way of life it was. For a long time, it was like that. We'd go to school. We'd have the summers off. Weekends, we're doing work. And after school, I'd get off. First thing we did was homework. We didn't fuss and fight over that. We had our rules. And then after homework, then whatever chores. Then maybe at the end of the day, at the nighttime, we'd sit there and we'd watch. We call it wrestling, in the South, because my dad was really into Ric Flair and, Hogan and, all them fools. And that's kind of what we do, which kind of will take me to a story that me and my brother, this is kind of a mischievous thing, and I still felt bad about this for years. So my brother really liked wrestling too. He really liked Ric Flair. He really liked doing the figure 4. Well, I was a tiny little kid, man. I was like 68 pounds. I don't know. Maybe it's because we were starved and I grew up malnourished. It took me a long time to kind of get any weight on me, especially when I was tiny. My daughter, she is a lot like me, like I was when that age, but she's never starved. That kid eats more than a horse does, I'm telling you. But back to the story. So my brother, he was always, figure 4ing me, fucking body slamming me. You know what I mean? Like, he thought he was hot shit of a wrestling god. Really, he did. And like I said, he never picked on my sister because she was the baby. And she was so precious and treasured. My sister was all into Barbies and pink and dressing in dresses. And here I am, the tomboy of tomboys. You know what I mean? I'm running after my brother. I'm just as dirty and rugged as he is. We're playing cops and robbers, and I know it's not PC, but cowboys and Indians, because we used to watch westerns with my dad. So whatever. We were playing Ninja Turtles and all the kind of crazy whatever. Anyways, I digress. So one day he put the figure 4 on me, and it hurts, of course. Then he stops and he picks me up and he body slams me. Well, knocked the freaking breath out of me. And if you've ever had your breath knocked out of you before, that hurts. You literally cannot breathe. Your lungs are pretty much paralyzed. Well, I never really had much of a temper back then, not towards my brother, because I adored him, worshipped him. Like I said, the sun rose and set in Joey's ass to me. You know what I mean? Like he was my idol. But it pissed me off. I think that was probably one of the first times I ever got outwardly mad at somebody else, because I always internalized that I'm not someone that really likes to let my anger control me or, rule me. But I was like 7, you know what I mean? What do I know? Pissed me off. Finally got my breath back. It took forever. I thought I was going to die, I swear. Got up and I pushed him over. Then when my little 68 pounds jumped onto his foot, and we both heard a crack, and I can swear that I've never heard that boy cry and scream like that ever before in my life. Well, what ended up happening is I broke 3 of the bones on top of his foot. Now, my 68 pound little ass wasn't enough to break his foot, but there was a tree root underneath his foot, so the whole pressure, leverage, right? Boop, boop, boop. Do you know that I cried so bad? I was so upset about that. I begged him to forgive me. He would not forgive me. He would hobble away on his crutches. He wouldn't let me sign his cast. Years later, even after we had grown up and we were, talking to each other as adults and teenagers, he'd always say, "Tina, your fat ass broke my foot." But I will tell you, during that summer, my brother didn't fuck with me. No, sir, he didn't. All I had to do was just kind of stomp, and he'd hobble away on those crutches. Oh, man. That was the only time I ever got one over on my brother. Anyways, that was just a funny little aside. I broke my brother's foot once, but I didn't mean to. I was really not a violent child. And, It was totally an accidental, and I was really sad he didn't let me son his cats. Hop along, Joey. I picked on him a little bit when we were older about that. Of course, he'll tell you it was my fat ass, but it is what it is. Anyways, that was our day. That was our life. We played, did chores. It was very, 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 there wasn't really much enjoyment. We were too poor to really go out on trips and stuff like that. Sometimes they take us out to the beach because we live close enough to the beach out there past Monkey Junction in Wilmington, North Carolina. So we were pretty close to Carolina Beach. I remember one time before my brother went to the other place that he set the woods on fire next to our house. Oh my God. And no one could find him. Like the fire department had came out and they're all trying to put the fire. And it's summertime, so everything's hot and dry. And we were like really worried. We're like, Joey, where are you? Where are you? His little ass was hiding in one of the boats because, again, my dad used to repair small engine motors. So sometimes people bring their boats over, and he was hidden in one of those boats, and he wouldn't come out. Lord, let me tell you how much trouble he got into. Jesus only knows. But I think not long after that, he was done living there because my mom was very strict. She was a disciplinarian, and he wasn't about that. But, totally can understand. My mom was always really, really stern, but it got worse when my dad had a stroke. So my mom, Pearl, my adopted mom, never worked. She only had a 4th grade education. She married Kermit when she was 19 and he was 37, and he'd already been divorced, and he had 2 grown children by that time. To say that she had a rough life would be undermining what happened to her. Again, even like my bio mom, I can rationalize some of the things that made them the way they were. But again, it comes back to choice. You can choose to be a good person or a bad person. You can choose to let the shit that happened to you warp you or make you grow. So my dad had a stroke. I remember the night it happened. My dad was a big man. He was 350 pounds. I remember it very, very clearly. I went to go help him get up for dinner. He had this big old recliner. I went to go help him, my 9-year-old self. I went to go reach out for his hand. My mom, I couldn't get him up, and so I called my mom over. My mom came and went to go pull on him to lift him up, and he fell on her. And we couldn't get him off of her. We were little, right? I remember we had to call our friend Dale, who used to live down the road. He was always a good family friend, always helping us out. We had to call him to get him off my mom because he had pinned her down there, and he couldn't move. Like, he couldn't talk, he couldn't move, whatever. He had a massive stroke. It just hit him right hard on the right side, so completely paralyzed his left side. That was the beginning of the end of my childhood, right then and there. I remember we weren't going to put him in a home. In the South, is a bit different. You take care of your own. So we took care of him at home. I had to learn real quick how to take care of someone that was disabled. For a while there, he had a physical therapist, and they were trying to work with him on, learn how to walk and regain his, independence. But Kermit gave up. Kermit was like, oh, this is easy. They're going to come in here, and I got some cute nurses. I can pinch their asses, and they're going to wipe my ass, and I can eat whatever I want. So he was like, no, I'm not going to work for it. So he gave up. So here I am, 9, lifting on a 350-pound man, wiping a 350-pound man's ass because he's shitting and pissing himself all the time. After a while, he didn't become my dad anymore. I had to kind of disassociate that, because when you see someone deteriorate like that, and when you have to take care of him to that kind of level, and I used to love him. I'm not saying that I never did love him, because I did. There was a time. But after a while, I would say that people that can take care of their loved ones in that capacity, God bless you. It's hard. Not only is the physical work of it, but the mental load. Because then he got dementia and he kept having strokes, and it was just destroying his brain, what was left. I think that if he had actually kept going with the physical therapy and kept moving and was active, and kind of took care of his health, none of those things would happen. But he gave up. He just let it happen. I remember one of the reasons I have such a bad back now, my L1 and L2 are all fucked up. You know what I mean? It's because I was lifting on this guy at 9. Like I said, I was like 68 pounds back then. You know what I mean? I started getting muscles. I was not the little petite feminine thing. I was still petite, but I had muscles, man. I remember in high school, boys would arm wrestle me and I'd win. You can't imagine how well that worked for me in the dating field. Didn't really work, but I wasn't really into dating anyways, and we'll get to that in another in another session here. But I had to grow up way too fast. I'd already grown up too fast, taking care of my sister. My brother took care of me, but I took care of my sister, so I was always kind of the mama bear. Even with the other foster care kids, I always took on so much work. I took care of the house and took care of all of Pearl's needs, and then when Kermit had a stroke, Pearl didn't know what to do. She'd never worked a job in her life. She had always been a stay-at-home mom. Kermit did everything for her. My mom didn't even know how to drive. So my mom at 37, when he had a stroke, had to learn how to drive for the first time. Thankfully, he got like Medicare or whatever, and us kids, we brought in money every month. That was, yep. If you have kids from the state, that was one of the main reasons they did what they did, was because they could help offset and pay the bills, was having all these kids here. Me and my sister, she got a monthly stipend for us until we turned 18. Every month she got a monthly stipend, and it did increase every few years, to accommodate for our growing needs as we grew. Oh, man. But she didn't know. She broke. I think a part of my mom didn't know how to manage. Now, she did help take care of him, but mostly it was me. And she leaned on me so much, so much, so much. My sister got to be a child during that time. I did not. Because, again, there's this big part of me, well, this person has given me a life and safety and food and shelter and all this and that and the other, and she needs me. So what am I going to do? I'm going to help her. I'm going to take care of Kermit. I'm going to lighten the load. When he wakes up in the middle of the night yelling, help me, because he's having a nightmare or he needs something, guess whose ass got up and helped him? My insomnia started so long ago. My migraine started so long ago. It's the stress. It's not realistic kind of things to have a 9-year-old doing. I remember it got so bad that my mom's like, I can't handle this anymore with just you, Tina. So we're going to have to move and go be closer to my sister. So we packed up everything I ever knew. And my sister, we ever knew, she stopped doing, at this point, when my dad had the stroke, we weren't doing foster care. So it was just me and my sister because we were adopted. So we were there already. So we moved to the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, called a little town called Dunn. D-U-N-N. Now, my joke was always, if you get there, once you get there, you're done. And it was. I remember my mom wouldn't always pay rent, so we moved around a lot. It was great. We'd hop from Dunn to Irwin, which is a little town next to it. And Irwin was always known for like the denim days. The only thing that you could do in those towns was go to Walmart, the super Walmart, and cruise around. There was just nothing to do there. Everybody knew everybody. You fart and everyone smells it. There's no secrets in a town like that. But whatever. So she moved closer to be closer to her sister so she could have more support. You would think that would have helped. They would have helped out, but no, they didn't. They just meant she had someone to talk to, basically. So that was kind of nice or whatever. But again, she didn't always pay rent and stuff like that because she never took care of a home. Not really. She took care of the inward help, taking care of the kids and cooking and that kind of stuff and being a homemaker. But she didn't know how to do any of that. And she wasn't just going to go and get a job, God knows. Why would you think about doing that, and trying to support your kids? Instead, she's going to take care of him and make me her nursemaid. I remember when the rotating nurses, because they would have a nurse come in twice a week, the nurse would come to me for the checkup, and I would give her the rundown because I knew everything about it. I could easily have gone into the medical field had I chose to do so. I have an affinity for it, a natural affinity, and also I understand it quite well. Do I want to work in that field? No. Do I give people massive props for working in that field? Yes. Thank you so much. You guys are heroes, for real. I think that taking care of a loved one did me in on that one. So I can't. I just can't. Even though I might be good at it, and even though I would give them excellent care, I just can't. I have no desire to do it because I did it my whole life. One of the reasons I never wanted kids, originally, I love my children, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't actively going out and trying to make babies because I had spent my whole life taking care of people. I took care of all the foster care kids, took care of my sister. Then I was forced to take care of a grown-ass man. So my whole life, where's Tina, right? When does Tina get to enjoy her life or enjoy her childhood? I was a kid. So heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? But if you asked me if I would have done things differently, probably not. Probably not. I think everything happened the way it was supposed to because it helped mold me to be the person I am now. Was any of it easy? Hell no, it wasn't. And that's just a part of it. I mean, this is the part of it that leads to the other part, and I'll probably save that for the next section. But yeah, so we moved to Dunn and Irwin. We were the poor kids that everyone fucking picked on, and we never had the good clothes. And somehow or another, they found out we were adopted, and oh lordy, that was even better. Kids are fucking assholes. And they're worse today because now you got social media and they can just shame you and take pictures and share and ruin your life. Back then we didn't have that, but we definitely had still enough bullying. I remember one time. So I never, let me back up a step. So I never bullied anyone. I was not aggressive at all. But if you fucked with me, I finished it. I had pride. I might have been poor and all this and that and other, but remember, I had some of this anger, right? My mom had all this little inward anger. I never let it out, right? But I also had pride. I was spunky little shit. They would pick on me because I was poor. I never laid a finger on them first, but if they did to me, then I did it back. And back when I was a kid, there was a few years where spanking was still a thing in school. So the principal and my ass knew each other quite well for a bit. Did I regret it? Fuck no. After a while, people stopped messing with me because they knew I would hit them back. Because I had pride. Even as poor as I was like, oh, they ain't going to pick on me and talk to me like that because we all put our shoes on the same way. We all put our pants on one foot at a time. You know, no one is any better than me. And even at that age, I knew that. I was like, no, you don't talk. I am still a human. You cannot treat me like that. I remember they would pick on my sister. My sister would cry because she was sensitive, Sheila. And she'd come run to me, and then I'd have to go talk to them, and then they would swing on me, and then it was a thing. It was always a thing. Let me tell you that no one ever wanted to date me because they were worried I'd hit them. I remember one time, I can laugh about it now, but I was really pissed. It was really fucking disgusting. I was probably, just started high school. No, 8th grade, so right middle school, right, and going into high school. I remember this fucking punk came onto the bus stop. The bus. And walked up to my sister and gave her a bag of dog food, dry fucking kibble, and a flea collar. Because we were poor. You know what my little ass did? That time I did swing on someone first. I will say that, and I don't regret it. So I stood up. I'm tiny, man. I was like 5. Back then, I was even already at my apex height, 5'3.5". So I stood up. My little 5'3", a little ass popped up, hit him right in the nose. Fucking nose just spread everywhere. I didn't fucking care. I was like, pfft. Now I got in a lot of trouble for that. Do I regret doing that? Nope. But I'm going to tell you that boy never fucked with us again. And when I got into high school, that boy, if he ever saw me in the hallway, he would turn pale and turn and go the other way. So after a while, people stopped picking on my sister publicly. Kids are fucking assholes, man. I wish I could say that bullying was the worst thing that we ever went through or experienced, but it wasn't. That was just like kid shit, man. But who does that? Who brings someone fucking dog kibble and fucking flea collar? We're humans. What the fuck, man? What the fuck? I bet he never did that to anyone else again. I hope his nose is still, Jimmy, if you're out there, I hope your nose is still fucking crooked. I really do. But after a while, I got older and I realized violence, my anger wasn't going to get me anywhere. Fighting is not the answer. I don't advocate for it, and I don't teach it to my kids because it doesn't. It doesn't get you anywhere because violence just begets violence. I was an angry kid, but I had reasons to be angry. But again, I was not outwardly angry. I never picked or sought a fight, but I stood up for myself. I didn't let people push me over. At least there was that. I wasn't a pushover. I would do everything else for people, but I wouldn't back down from a fight. If you offended me or you tried to swing on me, that was it. You know what I mean? I'm going to fight for my sister. I'm going to fight for myself. I don't teach my kids that. You know what I mean? Like, let's try to talk it out first. Anger is not the answer. Violence is never the answer. You couldn't get me to fight now if you wanted to. For one, I'm too old, and why? Just why? Just leave, man. Just don't. Yeah. Middle school was fun. Bouncing back and forth. Went to a lot of different schools. For a few years, it was like that. Taking care of my dad. He's progressively getting worse, so more and more, his needs are amping up. And then my mom met somebody. His name was William Whitehead. I remember this motherfucker. He was 70 years old. No, he was 57 when he met her, because she was in her 40s by then. So he's much older. No, he was almost 60, yeah. So she was in her 40s by then, time she met him. And she moved him in with my dad across the hall. She started dating this person and taking care of this person. Do you think he had a job? Nope. Do you think that he ever tried to support her? Nope. But my mom was lonely. My mom was codependent. My mom had never been without a male presence in her life. So she got with him and moved him in with her 2 young female daughters. And on that note, I'll leave it for the next one, because there's another chapter in my life where shit goes to shit even worse before I move out. But this is probably around the time when I was 13. I think I was 12 and a half when I met him, but yeah, 13 for sure when shit started happening. But yeah, so she moved in with that fucker. Well, he moved in with us because he didn't have a fucking job. And I'll tell you all about William Whitehead on the next episode. If you tune in, thank you so much for listening. I went through a lot of craziness, some of it funny, some of it not. Again, not all of it was bad, but, not all of it was good either. I like to remember the funny times, like me breaking my brother's foot. I don't know. Again, thank you so much for listening. If you liked my content, please like, sub, and comment below if you want to hear more stories. Thank you again, everyone, for your thoughts and kind words, and love the support. Thank you so much for joining me in Made with South. Signing off.